Welcome back. You watched our first or second or whatever number series, and you're back for more. That means we got great questions and great answers. Todd Colley with Great American RV, Eric Perry. Let's talk more about RV finance.
Let's do it.
How much for the down payment is required when it comes to buying an RV?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it really depends on how much you plan on financing. Most of our lenders don't have a problem with doing little to no money down below about $50,000. Once you get between $50,000 to $100,000 financed amount, we do start to limit our lender pool, but it's still available. Over $100,000, we are very limited on the banks that we can use, but it's still possible to do that limited to no money down over $100,000. Just our banks are pretty limited at that point.
And I guess that makes sense because of the asset. You know, the bank wants to make sure that you're bought into this, right? You have some stake in the game.
Yeah. These aren't rental programs, right? You want to make sure that, the bank's got to have their collateral covered as well. So they'll allow it up to a certain point, but once you get to the bigger ticket stuff, 10% down is usually the starting point.
Okay.
Again, there's different parameters of different banks we work with, but that's a good rough estimate. Over $100,000, you usually need at least 10% down.
Does my down payment affect my interest rate?
It's a great question. Down payment can affect your interest rate in a positive way. So usually 20% down or so is our advertised interest rate incentive. So 20 to 30% down in a lot of situations will give you the best interest rate that you qualify for. There are other factors, I know we'll get to trade here in a minute, but if you do have negative equity in a trade, you do need to factor that into your down payment because that will take away from the down payment that you're putting on the table.
Moving on, what interest rates are available right now? We just talked about interest rates.
Sure.
Things that affect it. What's available right now in the market?
So they fluctuate quite a bit. Right now, we have advertised rates as low as 5.99 for well-qualified buyers on bigger ticket items, and they range from that 5.99 all the way up to a 19.95%. So it really depends on what you're buying, of course, how you qualify with credit, and how much you plan on putting down, as we just talked about. So a lot of different factors that can come into the interest rate, but right now 5.99 is that sweet spot that we've seen at some of our shows here.
So saying that, shows, we have in-house shows. We're here at the Birmingham show right now, which is probably past by the time you see this, but shows are a great time to buy. We've talked about that on the lives that we've done, and it just opens up the door for finance, really. We're here to make sales and get great prices for customers, but finance alone has some great opportunities when it comes to in-house shows at our dealerships and out of the store as well.
That's right, yeah. The banks they're a business just like anybody else, right? They compete for consumer business, sure, for dealer business. So they know a lot of consumers are going to shows looking for the best deals, and they want the best rates available so they can get the consumer's business. So we do see great rates at shows. And then throughout the year, they'll run certain incentives depending on the season, right? Springtime is a great time for them to run incentives as well.
Sure.
It's always best to check with your finance manager and see what incentives are out there as far as financing, because they do fluctuate throughout the year. And of course, the ebbs and flows of the economy as well will affect how those rates go.
Of course. How long can an RV loan term be? 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years?
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah, so 20 years is generally the max term that you can get. It does help make that payment a lot more manageable,
sure, obviously,
and you can get a 20-year term, sometimes in situations financing only $25,000. So it's possible to finance that for 20 years. Of course, you don't have to keep it that long. Average length of ownership is 4 or 5 years. So
right,
it's okay if you take out a 20-year note and pay that off early or trade that in early. And generally, anything over $10,000, you can qualify for 10 to 12 years. $25,000 is typically 180 months, and anything over $50,000, a lot of times we'll qualify for that 20-year term.
Can that affect our interest rate depending on how long we go with our terms?
It can. Sometimes banks will run some incentives to do a little bit shorter term. So if you go maybe a term back, maybe it qualifies for 20 years. And if you decide to go 15 years, it might lower that interest rate a little bit. So it's always something to discuss with the finance manager.
Okay. All right, so I think that's everything for this part of the series. We'll have a few, so make sure you're tuning in and following at Great American RV for the next part of the series for RV Finance with Eric Perry.
Perfect.